And joining us right now on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line from NBC Sports Philadelphia, I'll refer to him as his knighted name, Sir Pucks Hall. You might know him as Jordan Hall. Jordan Hall, NBC Sports Philadelphia, right? Flyers writer extraordinaire. What's up, Pucks?
Not much, Mark. How you doing, man?
I feel great. Did you have a good fourth?
I did. How about you?
Fantabulous. But you know what would make it better? Johnny Gaudreau, being a member of the Philadelphia Flyers, the Flyers trading that 5th overall pick from that guy that likes to score a lot of goals out there. He's 40-goal scorer. He's pretty good at hockey. I'd like to bring in him for the Blackhawks. Any chance both those things go down? Any chance those two guys are Flyers next year?
I would say probably more likely Alex Debrincat. I think the Blackhawks are probably pretty decently interested in moving him in a trade. And I think it's easier to acquire a big-name player in a trade nowadays, just given the cap world. Johnny Gaudreau is going to be a free agent if the Flames don't sign him before free agency. And he's going to demand probably upwards of $9 to $10 million. I think that's going to be tough for the Flyers to bring that in. They would have to make a trade and create room to make room for Johnny Gaudreau, where Debrincat, it could be via trade, it could be via draft picks. I think the price won't be as steep. So if anything, I would say Debrincat over Gaudreau. But boy, I think the Flyers fans would certainly be interested in Johnny Gaudreau. And I do think it's a possibility. I think he does want to come eventually home and play, where he obviously grew up. I think being on the East Coast appeals to him. But from what I've heard, the Flames are pushing hard to re-sign him. So we'll see how it goes down. But I would say more Debrincat over Gaudreau.
All right. Make sure everyone knew Flyers fan, of course, through all the Flyers draft coverage and NHL draft coverage from NBC Sports Philadelphia. Make sure you're following Jordan Hall at JHallNBCS. Make sure you're doing that. And also listening to the Flyers Talk podcast. And you guys are going to be doing a podcast following the draft pick or a trade that might go down tonight when we air this.
Exactly, Mark. We'll be doing it after their first round pick. So fans can probably catch it out tonight or Friday morning, whatever, okay. And wherever they get their podcast, we'll have all reaction there.
Wonderful. So what would you put the odds at right now that the Flyers actually make a pick at number 5 versus trading that number 5 overall pick to Chicago, let's say?
I'll say 85%. I think they're going to make the pick, Mark.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain they're going to do it. I just don't think the optics are great of trading the first round pick for a second straight year. I mean, the Flyers have preached that they want to get younger and get more talented. Chuck Fletcher has come out and said the easiest way to get top-end talent is through the draft. Year after year, historically, that is proven you get top-end talent through the entry draft. Here the Flyers have a 5th overall pick after a disastrous year in which fans went through hell and back. You have a 5th round pick. You have a 5th overall pick, I would make the pick. I think right now you want to put a focus on getting younger and getting more talented. Make the pick. I just don't think it would look great if they trade it for a second straight year. Last year, they traded their first round pick in the Rasmus Ristolainen deal. I think this time they're going to make the pick. Let their amateur scouting staff have their work rewarded and paid off. Those guys work hard throughout the year to watch these kids. So I would say 85%. My gut tells me they're going to make the pick, but I wouldn't rule out a trade. I wouldn't rule it out. The Flyers will listen. If they can get a young player that's making a big impact now, it can help them now. And then in the future, possibly they make a trade. But Chuck Fletcher did say it's not going to be for a player in his late 20s, early 30s. It's got to be a player in his young 20s that's making an imprint now and can help them in the long run.
Yeah, and I read that in your piece on NBCSportsPhilly.com as well as the My Teams app, and I thought to myself, why not both? Why not? You're talking about a guy like Debrincat. Why not talk about a guy like Johnny Gaudreau? And you're talking about the money. Moves can always be made for money. We know that, and we'll see how the Flyers could clear space possibly under the cap. But when I read that quote in your story from Chuck Fletcher, my first thought was, back in the old days and, Ed Snyder days, the Flyers would be the team that would get real greedy and go after both, because it's not like they don't need both. They absolutely need both. But is Debrincat young enough at 24, 25, I believe, in December? Is he young enough to fit that category as a guy that would come and help for years to come in Philadelphia?
He is, and that's why I think it probably does appeal to the Flyers, because, one, Debrincat fits that age range. He's 24, and 2, he's a pure goal scorer, and the team has lacked pure goal-scoring talent. That's an area of need. And he's a kid that has scored 40-plus goals twice before the age of 25. So he does fill a need there, and he does fit in that age range that I think will be appealing to the Flyers. But he will be doing a new deal after next season. So he'll be a restricted free agent. He's making around $6.4 million now, and he could probably demand a big payday, maybe in the $8 million range, if he goes out and produces another 30 to 40 goal season. So you do have the caveat of having to re-sign him and make sure you have room to re-sign him. But he is young. He does fill a need. So that's why I do think it is on the table, and I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay, fair enough. First time I've talked to you. Well, actually, one last thing on the draft I wanted to ask you about. Yeah. If the 85% of you is correct, and the Flyers do make a pick at that spot, number 5 overall, what are the odds they actually get somebody that will help them next year, or are all these kind of long-term investments at number 5?
No, I think some of these kids could help you after next year, maybe a year down the road from here. It will definitely depend on the player and the player's size and what position they play. But from what I've heard, some of these kids can be ready maybe in a year to compete, professionally, to play in the AHL and maybe compete for a Flyers roster spot. So they could land probably the best defenseman in the draft, maybe a guy like David Jiricek or Simon Nemec. Both those kids are regarded as the best defensemen in this draft. They're righty shots, which are a little harder to find. So I do think they could get a player that's going to be knocking on the door, say, in a year or so. And that's pretty attractive. Sometimes if you get a late first-round pick, it might take 2, 3, 4 years. These kids could be here in a year or so.
Nemec, is that the kid that's 6'3", that big body defenseman we love so much?
He's more, yeah, that's right. He's more around the 6 foot range mark, but
okay.
He's Slovakian, big time puck mover, put up really good points playing professionally in Slovakia, and a kid that has a lot of pro tools. Jiricek is a little bit bigger, and he's Czech.
He's the 6'3" monster.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's got huge size, and he's a ready shot, which people in hockey always rave about. You just don't have a ton of ready shots. And the Flyers have a couple young lefty shots, Cam York being one of them. So if you think you get one of these righty shot D and you pair him with Cam York, who's only 21, right there you might have a future top pair, for a decade plus.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Fun fact about me, and it's not about me, it's about the draft, it's about the Flyers. I got a little Slovak blood in me. That's right.
Do you?
My great-grandmother worked in a castle for a count and countess in Slovakia. Fun fact, she was also afraid of werewolves. That's a true story. I'm not kidding. But anyway, more on that later in my other podcast, Ancestry with Marc Farzetta. Anyway, John Tortorella comes here to Philadelphia. The reason I'm excited maybe for trading that 5th overall pick is I don't think John Tortorella is coming here for like a nice long rebuild or even a nice long retooling. John Tortorella is here at 63 years old because he wants to win. Is that the right vibe to take when John Tortorella takes over here, or is it more get ready for a long haul retool rebuild here in Philadelphia?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the Flyers are realistic of where they stand, that they're not going to win a Stanley Cup next season. I think they're just hoping for a guy that can give them direction and get them going right away. Not a long-term development guy, but a guy that has a history of coming in, demanding results, getting teams to play the right way, play defensively sound, and make right decisions. And Tortorella does have a track record of doing that. So he gets a lot out of less, and the Flyers don't have a ton right now. They have a talent deficiency. They're in a very unknown offseason. So Tortorella will come in, and he'll at least have them playing the right way, and I think he'll have them relevant again. So I think those are all good qualities. He does have a little more staying power than I think he gets credit for. He does have some longer stays. I mean, he was in Columbus for parts of 6 seasons. He coached in New York for parts of 6. So I think he does have a little more staying power than he gets credit for. But he will get results, I think, quickly. And I think the Flyers right now just need direction. I don't think they had a ton of direction. I think they have players that want to win, and I think they have players that care. But I don't think they know how to go about it. And I think a guy like John Tortorella will go in there. He'll have presence. He'll demand results. He'll demand the right way to play. And I think that's good for the Flyers because they don't need to be a Stanley Cup contender now, but they do need to have more direction and get fans kind of on board again. And I think a guy like Tortorella can do that.
Okay. Look, you're a writer and you're a hell of a hockey writer, and I say that with all sincerity. But let's play the role of salesman for a second here.
Okay.
And look, you know me well. I love the Flyers. I've been a huge Flyers fan my whole life, and I just want them to be relevant. Like, in a way, like what jumps to mind, and I know this is so random, but Doug Collins, when he took over the Sixers as the head coach, he said, I want the Sixers to be relevant again. And then the next thing you know, they were fighting in the Game 7 of the second round of the playoffs. Heard that before, but it was under Doug Collins. It was like news. How do you make this team relevant again? If you're talking to a Flyers fan and people see you on the street, whatever, and they ask about the Flyers, what should I be excited about? What should I be excited about in the upcoming season? Nothing to do with the draft, but what should I be excited about right now as looking at the Philadelphia Flyers?
I think the Flyers have two things that should excite fans. One, I think they have a fun and fiery head coach in John Tortorella, and I thought that was the start. I thought that was the start of the organization saying, hey, we have a head coach who's been there, done that. He's fun. He wants to interact with fans. He's going to be fiery. He's going to show his emotions. So right there, I think you have it behind the bench. I think there's not going to be many dull days in John Tortorella land. And then I think Carter Hart still, to me, is a big-time ticket seller. He's 23 years old. I think he's already had success. I think the sky's the limit for him. So you have a head coach and you have a guy at the most important position on the ice in net, only 23 years old, and going to be getting better. And I think one trademark to Tortorella teams are they play the right way in front of their goalies. They make life easier on their goalies. So you get Tortorella and you get Carter Hart, you pair them together. I think you're going to have intriguing hockey to watch. And I'll tell you what, these are big ifs, but if Sean Couturier can come back and look like himself again after undergoing back surgery, and if Ryan Ellis can be on the ice and be just somewhat of himself, those are two massive pieces. I mean, that's a first-line center that plays in all situations in Couturier, and you have a top pair defenseman in Ryan Ellis who eats up minutes, plays power play, plays penalty kill. They had those two guys for a combined 33 games last season. It was just a mess. You put those two guys in the lineup, if they are healthy, and those are big Fs, but if they are, I think the team is a lot better. I think it's a lot more interesting. And I think those are two guys that play Philly hockey, that want to bust their butt, want to play in all situations. I think they can really play the way Flyers fans want to see hockey. So if they're healthy, I think the team will be a lot more interesting.
Two things regarding the former and possibly the current or future captain of the Philadelphia Flyers. One, where do you think Giroux ends up next year?
Ooh, great question. Mark, I will say a Canadian team. I know that doesn't really whittle it down a ton, but yeah. I wonder if that's maybe on a bucket list for him. He's from Canada, as we all know.
Lives in Ottawa.
Yeah, lives in Ottawa. You know him well, Mark. I think maybe playing for a Canadian franchise would really appeal to him. It would be close to home. I'm going to say a Canadian team. I'm not sure where. I've heard some buzz about the Oilers, maybe the Leafs. Obviously, some of those Canadian teams feel like they're right there on the cusp of maybe competing for a Stanley Cup. Giroux is a guy that you pluck in your line, you put him in your lineup, and all of a sudden you're getting closer to a Stanley Cup. So I'll go Canadian team. What about you?
Wow, I'm telling you right now, if I see him in a Maple Leafs jersey, pots and pans, I'll lose it. I hate that jersey. But anyway, I honestly don't know. I think if the Senators are interested in knocking on his door, Edmonton, I think would be another name like you mentioned that is he's definitely considering. Maybe he would consider the Avalanche. I don't know. Yeah. But that's just that's all speculation. That's not going any decent knowledge. And then finally, Sean Couturier, I think, would be the favorite to win the captain, but he's injured a lot. You just referenced the back surgery he's coming back from. So Couturier gets the captaincy. Who gets the captaincy from the Flyers next year?
I'm leading Couturier because I think Tortorella is going to just hear rave reviews from his teammates, from people in management that, hey, this guy is a Flyer. He's been here a long time. He leads by example. So I think he's due for the captaincy. But Cam Atkinson, of course, will be a really intriguing guy, a candidate for sure, given he played under Tortorella and was a part of their leadership group. He's thought of highly by John Tortorella. So I wouldn't rule out Cam Atkinson or maybe even a Scott Lawton, who's now really starting to wear, wins and losses on his sleeve. You can tell he really cares about this organization deeply. So those are two dark horses, but I think Sean Couturier is going to be the guy.
All right, and I'm fine with that. And then finally, the NHL schedule came out. Anything jump out to you regarding the schedule?
Mark, I will say only one home game against the Penguins, which I thought was pretty weird to me. I can't remember the last time they only had one home game against Pittsburgh. Maybe it has happened recently, but I can't think of it. But I will say it falls on Black Friday, which I find super intriguing. I think, a Black Friday home game against the Penguins. So I think maybe the NHL said, okay, we're only having one rivalry matchup in Philadelphia, but you know what? We'll put it on Black Friday, which is a huge game for Flyers fans. Should be really fun. I think that's a game that you can almost guarantee a packed house.
Sounds good to me. Jordan Hall, NBC Sports Philadelphia, Pucks Hall himself, joining us on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line. Make sure you guys are following him. If you're not following, like, are you even a Flyer fan? Like, what are you doing with your Flyers fandom? Jordan Hall at JHallNBCS on Twitter. So make sure you guys follow him and also give a listen to the Flyers Talk podcast whenever the Flyers do whatever it is they're going to do with that 5th overall pick. Jordan, always great catching up with you, man. Thanks so much.
Mark, thanks so much for having me, man. Great seeing you.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Jordan Hall joining us once again on the Rothman Orthopaedics guest line.